Hello, students of DHS. We are the Vortex, a student-run podcast of making entertainment for students, such as yourself. Today is Wednesday, the 23rd of February. We've come to Mr. Cross to ask about his thoughts on the school, whether it is a positive or negative environment, what he has expected to come out of this place, his expectations, and many other things. Good morning, Mr. Cross. How are you this morning?
Good morning.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
If that's all right with you. Well, creeping on to the upcoming question, what about our school has led you to apply for being our leader?
Well, I came here 3 years ago after spending about 15 years in middle school. I just saw it as an opportunity to go back to high school. I was a high school principal a long time ago, and I kind of missed just the high school environment and the energy and all the fun stuff that goes along with the classes. And I think that's that's what makes a high school unique and makes it fun.
Even though we're all older.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, middle school kids are that's a fun age too, but after 15 years of that, I was ready for a change.
Can you please tell us about your education, your teaching, and administrative experience?
Sure. I did my undergraduate for college at the University of Nebraska, and I came out here. I didn't know anything about Nevada. I moved out to Winnemucca, Nevada, out of college. I was recently married, and my wife and I were just looking for a place where they were hiring a lot of teachers, and we both began our teaching career in Humboldt County. She taught kindergarten, and I taught fourth grade. I started out as an elementary teacher. I did that for a few years, then we moved to Lyon County. I've worked since being in Lyon County, and I started in 2000, I've worked in the Silver Springs schools, the Fernley schools, the Yerington schools, and now here in Dayton. So I've pretty much covered everything except for Smith Valley. I've taught middle school, I taught art, I taught while I was a middle school teacher, I taught English, math, social studies, and science. So I've kind of moved around. And my first administrative job was assistant principal at Yerington Intermediate. I did that for a while, and then I moved to Fernley High School. I became the principal there. I was the principal at Fernley Intermediate School for quite a while, and then opened Silverland Middle School in 2010. And I was there until coming here to Dayton High 3 years ago.
What would you say was your favorite of teaching?
Probably teaching art. That was fun. It was in middle school, and we didn't have a lot of resources. I was in a room where we didn't even have a sink, so that made it kind of challenging, but that was a lot of fun. Just kind of like the creative aspect of it, and seeing kids who had never had an art class before realize that they had some talents that they didn't know they had. That was really fun.
Yeah. What do you think, as the principal of the school, do we need to have everyone, students, teachers, to make the next jump?
I think to make the next jump, we need to embrace who we are. There's a lot of talk. A lot of people are trying to make some changes that we're not in control of. I'm thinking specifically like the big push to move us into the 2A for athletics, things like that. We've met a lot of resistance from other schools because of our size, and I think that the students and the community here, we need to embrace the fact that we are a fairly good-sized school. We have a huge pool of resources as far as athletic talent and academic talent and all those things, and I think we just need to come to terms with the fact that that's where we are, and that's the school's only going to get bigger, and we need to embrace the fact that we're part of that league, for example, and we need to just work on becoming more competitive within the league we're in. That's one of the first things that come to mind. I know you're probably not talking specifically about sports, but that's kind of one of the things that I think people outside of a community, that's how they know a school, right?
That's a part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
And it could be a huge help too.
Yeah, and that also comes to mind because in terms of academics, this school does really well. Our graduation rate 3 years ago was one of the lowest. It was the lowest in the Lyon County School District. Last year, there's only one school that had a higher graduation rate than us, and Again, I think that was Smith Valley, which, they're such a small school. They have nearly 100% every year, so it's really tough to be higher than them. But our graduation rate has gone way up. I'm very proud of that, and that's a reflection of the work that teachers have done here and the students too, honestly.
Yeah. What do you think we can do to make our school more exciting?
I think one of the things we can do is get people involved in a positive manner. I'd love to see more kids showing up at events, at games, at dances, and stuff like that. I think that the high school experience is one of the only times in your life where people are spending time and money and energy to create these exciting or these events, that are supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad to see a lot of people that just don't ever go to anything. I know there are students here that have never come to a dance, they've never gone to any kind of a game or anything like that. And then the last couple of years, we haven't really been able to have pep rallies and assemblies, so they don't even get to experience that. So, really excited to see that stuff come back this spring. I think we're going to be able to bring a lot of that back. So,
that's good.
Yeah.
Because we want to get more students involved.
Absolutely, me too. Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One thing, there's all kinds of research out there that shows that when kids are involved in things outside academic classes, that they have a much better chance of graduating. They're usually more successful because they are motivated to do well in classes, to stay eligible for those things. And it's just nice to have something to belong to something, even if it's just a club, something that you're interested in. Share some time with people that have the same interests that you have.
Yeah. How do you believe in the next 5 years this school can change under your supervision?
Well, I think one of the key things, one of the biggest challenges we're having right now is with our staffing. We have some shortages. We've had shortages in applicants for positions, and we've got one position that hasn't been filled yet with a licensed teacher all year, and that's challenging. The burden falls on the teachers. A lot of times they're covering other people during their absences on prep periods. We're really hurting for subs, and I think we need to step up some efforts outside of our building to recruit some folks, to get some people interested in coming and being part of our school.
Yeah, like changing, such as school spirit, student behavior, equality, and rules.
Right, sure.
How would you encourage the participation and involvement of parents in our school, such as helping with all these school rules and changing the view of the students and everything?
Well, I think, parent involvement is hard because parents have lives outside of school, obviously. I think most people are as involved as they want to be when they can be, but they also have jobs. They have other kids sometimes in other schools. They have other things in their life. I think the key thing is just creating opportunities, and then also having reasonable expectations and not being, I think it's important as adults in the school and students too, that we can't get upset for people that don't come to those things or don't take advantage of opportunities like parent-teacher conferences and stuff like that. Most of the time I think people want to do that stuff and they're just not able to. And we have to respect the fact that, everybody's got a life outside of school, and it's been kind of a challenge the last couple of years, and there have been a lot of weird changes that people are trying to adjust to. So I think some understanding is going to have to come into play there. And then obviously communication is important. Trying to get the word out to people about what's going on in the school is sometimes difficult. Not everybody's on social media. We don't have a local newspaper or radio station or TV station where we can get that stuff out. So I think getting creative, stuff like what you guys are doing with the podcast and trying to share, just finding other ways to get the word out about what's going on in our school is probably pretty important.
Yeah, because we want more students involved in what we're doing, and a lot don't join in.
Right. And even things like, the announcements, for example. I don't know how many people actually pay attention to that. I know every once in a while I have somebody come up and ask me a question about when something's happening when it's been in the announcements for couple weeks,
Yeah.
So I know that's not always super effective, but we're working on it. We're working on the marquee out front to be able to post messages and things out there. Trying to do some things like the TV monitors in the gray room and outside of the library, just using those as other ways to share information with people.
Okay.
Alright, yeah, I'm gonna pause you there. This is a perfect opportunity for you to invite some response, like you talked about parents and you talked about student involvement, and we'll edit out my interruption, obviously. Maybe ask, like, Eileen, do you want your parents involved in school? Do you want them to come to class and be interviewed by you for the podcast?
I'll interview anyone else's parents, except mine.
Okay. So then maybe ask and say, okay, well, this is maybe what do students think about parent involvement, or how we could get more students out. Get Eileen's response, and then that gives Mr. Cross a chance to respond.
I was gonna say about school spirit. Could you talk now?
Yeah.
So I'm talking there. What am I saying?
So, just go ahead and introduce, let's get a student's opinion on this topic.
How?
Let's get a student opinion on this topic.
So coming back to this topic, I'm going to bring in a student and she's going to share her opinion. Eileen?
Introduce the topic to her.
So the topic that we're on is how we can get parents involved and what students think of what we can do and how we can get more students involved.
I think the parent aspect about it would be like Mr. Cross said, having them come out and to the parent-teacher conferences and to everything we have in the school, because most of the time most parents will be at the game, but not all. So it's in a way, it shows the kids not wanting to come either, because it's in their home expectation in a way. It's their parents never really went to their games or to things when they were in high school, so why would they go?
Yeah, I think that's true. There are a lot of parents that didn't have a positive experience when they were students in school, and so coming back to school is not something they want to do. In fact, it's terrifying to some people. So I think creating positive experiences when we do get them back to school is important, and also we have to keep in mind that not every student wants their parents in school all the time. Or even at all, and so that's that's a key thing too.
I think another key would also be the school spirit that we have, because you said, without pep, we don't have pep rallies or those things anymore. So it's also another way to we don't have as much school spirit.
Right, and I have been talking with Mr. A and leadership about bringing that stuff back. I think now that some of the restrictions have been lifted and we don't have the mask mandates and stuff like that, I know they're planning on doing some things this spring. Probably around the spring sports stuff, trying to bring back the old pep rallies and introduce the teams and things like that. So that'll help.
Because I know most of us do not know the school song.
Right.
I do not.
That's right. Yeah, and that's it wasn't like that just a few years ago. But even though we've only been dealing with COVID restrictions and things like that for a couple of years, it's easy for adults to think about that as not being that long, but you have to remember, in a student's life, that's half your high school experience. And for a lot of people, I think, it's gone into year 3 a little bit. They were dealing with this as freshmen, and somebody that's, a senior right now, they've really missed out on a lot of things that have happened, that typically happen every year. And a lot of traditions and things have changed. We've also dealt with some other challenges, things like the bonfire, which was a huge tradition here. And if you remember this fall, we had all those fires all around us and neighborhoods being evacuated in South Tahoe. And the fire marshal was reluctant to sign off on that and basically said, this is probably something that's not going to happen again, just with the way things have gone. Might want to figure out a different way to deal with that. So we talked with some students. We found some other things to do. And then here recently at a student focus group, I got some more input from students on things we can do to make, some of those events that we want to hang on to, not necessarily getting rid of them, but changing them up so that they're, we're doing something else and we just have to kind of roll with the changes, I think.
With that and like you getting their input, how do you think we could get the school to have more school spirit?
Well, I think it's important to get student input because nobody knows what is interesting to students more than students, right? And I know a lot of us think we know because we were students once, but like I said, things change over time, and the stuff that used to bring people out is maybe not the way we do it anymore. So I think it's really important to get that student perspective. You guys are the reason that all of us are here, and while it is still important that we have adults kind of running the show and making the final decisions, I think it's really important that we get input from students and find out what would bring them out. That's the best way to figure out what would bring students to events, is to just ask them. And it's not going to be the same answer for everybody, obviously. We got 700 plus kids here and a lot of diverse opinions and backgrounds and things, so it's not going to be like a one size fits all. But I think we can do a number of little things that'll get people involved.
Okay.
So, what would you expect of the students and staff?
What would I expect of them? You mean just in general, or at those kind of events, or?
It could, yes, with the events and your input on and how so yes, basically school spirit and everything.
Well, I think the thing that would be most helpful is if we would focus on making participation in those things positive. For example, like at our basketball games, we recently had some complaints, from visiting teams about just student conduct, and I was at the game. I saw what was going on. A lot of chants going back and forth, and it was all in good fun until it wasn't. It kind of went a little too far. So I think just reminding our kids that when they do come to those events, that they are representing Dayton, whether they like it or not, in the eyes of visitors. And when people come to visit here and their experience is negative because they hear a lot of profanity or just people being rude in the stands and stuff like that.
Or some bad reputation.
Yeah, it does. It's harmful to the reputation of the whole school. And I think that does kind of bring us all down, when things are being said about, negative experiences that people have had when they come out here, then, that tends to, perception becomes reality, right? I mean, people hear that enough and they start to think, yeah, that's how it is. And that's really not how it is here. I think for the most part, we have a lot of great people here. Yeah, we do have some room for improvement for sure, but for the most part, people are pretty kind, and I've been in a lot of other schools, and I think that here more than other places that I've been, people are pretty kind and positive and are willing to do the right thing and behave and act the right way and treat others with kindness. But there's always those that aren't, and I think it's the job of the rest of us to kind of point that out, call them on it, and say, hey, you need to chill out. Somebody's grandma's sitting in the stands over here, and they're listening to you swear, and that needs to stop, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Because we all want to have a great time.
Right.
Okay, now these are all the questions I have for the moment. But as a class, is there anything you'd like to ask Mr. Cross?
Any questions, Mr. Cross?
How did you like the last two basketball games that you went to?
Say that again.
How did you like the basketball games that you went to? What did you think about them?
Well, you mean as far as like how the games went, or just the general tone of the crowd and stuff like that? Well, like I said, I think that I think they start out great, and then we tend to, there tends to be at some point some kind of a low point where people are not being positive, or we're hearing, people getting on the officials or saying some rude things to other teams, stuff like that. And it's just a small number of people, but those things really stand out. And when you have a little bit of that, it can ruin an event that was 95% positive, because that's what people walk away with. That's the memories they have. So I think we need to work on that a little bit.
So there's a lot of teachers and students, complaining about some of the events that we have, like homecoming. There were students that said that the dance was pretty bad.
Do you think there's like other events or anything that we could add to help school spirit?
Well, I don't know if adding additional events is where we need to go, or if it's just improving the ones that we have. I don't know if you were part of that last student focus group. I think you were, but there were a lot of ideas that people threw out to make the dances better. I was at the homecoming dance, and I thought we had a pretty big crowd there, and it was packed and looked like everybody was having a pretty good time. I didn't make it to the latest dance. I think it was the Sadie Hawkins dance, and I heard that the attendance was way down there. Just again, I think talking to kids about what we could do to make it more fun. We got some great input, a lot of suggestions for changing up the music a little bit, maybe bringing in a DJ or something like that. I think one of the other big things that came up more than once was having some food, serving food or something at the dance. And I think, just some little things like that would probably help. And if people come and say they had fun, other people are going to hear about it if they didn't go, and then the word will get out. I think the other thing is just maybe promoting positive stuff. It'd be nice to have maybe somebody there taking pictures and then posting some pictures of people just having fun, and that's a good way to encourage other people to come be a part of it.
All right, thank you.
And just to kind of close out the podcast too, Ashley, hang out. What are some of you guys' favorite things about events that bring you back to them?
Probably pep rallies.
Yeah, say that louder. Say that louder. Just list. What are all your favorite things? And why? I'll forget the why. Just tell me what your favorite things are.
So coming back to that subject, what we can do for more students to come is that we can, again, have more pep rallies, because I think that could encourage students to come. And it could be a lot of fun during pep rally, because there's music, there's the cheerleaders, and there was also games when we had pep rallies back.
Yeah, 'cause we had like teachers involved and just all of us were like having fun during like pep rallies and everything.
I think it was mostly the pep rallies, because going back, I think it was my 7th grade, so 2 years ago, when I would come to the games, it would be packed in here. Most of the stands wouldn't even be parents like it is now. It would all be students, and we would all like have the theme for a game, and it would all just be loud and crazy and make the game that more exciting.
Yeah, I feel like that's also something that we do have to work on, a lot of like getting more students involved and everything, because like again with our games, we had a lot of student involvement in it, and everyone was like looking forward to like our games, especially like our football, basketball games, and now it's just like because of like COVID and everything, all of our school spirit and our students just don't want to do anything, and that's just something that I feel like we really need to work on.
Feel free to close it out.
Well, it seems like we are running out of time for today, but we will be back with another episode along the next few weeks. And until then, students, have a nice day and good luck with your work. You got this.